Today was day one of NBA free agency, and this is really my day zero reactions to the signings that we've had thus far. I'm not going to cover every single one of them because some were really minor, some were not really surprising, or we knew they were going to re-sign with that team. But for the most part, I think you guys will appreciate the ones that I picked out, the ones that I think were the most important and integral. But before we get into this video, like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. I don't normally do NBA news too heavy, but this is free agency, so we got to do it, you feel me? And we're always going to do major NBA stories, major NBA news, as well as some of our own NBA stories. So lock in and let's get into it. Honestly, the first acquisition that stood out to me the absolute most, and really, I guess I could say frustrating. I don't know if it was confusing or frustrating, but I think frustrating is the most accurate word. And Jerami Grant signing a 5-year $160 million deal with the Trill is it's a deal where it pretty much solidifies that Dame is staying with the Portland Trail Blazers, and that the Trail Blazers are essentially trying to build a winner around Damian Lillard. And I think we're all tired. I think we're all ready for Damian Lillard to just be traded, to waive his no trade clause if he has one. I'm not 100% sure if he does. I'm pretty sure he does. But regardless, we're ready for Dame to get out of Portland. We're ready for him to be playing contender playoff basketball at the highest level. We've seen him in the Western Conference Finals, but that's not enough because we already knew he wasn't going to compete against that Golden State Warriors team. We want to see him actually competing at the highest level because we know he is the second best shooter in the league as it is right now, and we want to see that at the highest level as NBA fans. Now, I think personally, I'm the only honest person when it comes to that Dame argument. We all talk about him leaving and stuff, and I know a lot of people that say that they think he should have left about 3 or 4 years ago, which 3 or 4 years ago, that was about his 6th, 7th, and 8th year, and most players leave around that time. LeBron, KD, just two to name a few that are at that superstar level, and everybody killed them for leaving back then. And I think it's safe to say Dame is about 3 or 4 years too late in terms of leaving, and I personally think that NBA fans would have killed him had he left. And I really think it's more of a selfish desire, which is why everybody is so frustrated with the fact that he hasn't been traded. Now, personally, I think Dame, he's going to request a trade regardless. I just think he was waiting on the Trailblazers to see what they're going to do in the offseason, their free agency moves, who they draft, and if he thinks he can win with this team. And being that this free agency class is filled with more rotational pieces for rounding out rosters and such, the Trailblazers roster, it wasn't that good to begin with prior to the offseason, so there aren't really likely any moves that they can make that can really take this roster to the next level and convince Dame that this is a team that can win going forward. Mark my words, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Dame requesting a trade in the next couple weeks or so, maybe a month, but I could see it in the next 2 to 3 weeks. One of the next signings that I thought was actually a really good signing was Kyrie staying with the Mavericks for a 3-year $126 million deal. Now, there were reports that Kyrie wanted a long-term deal. He wanted the Supermax, which was 5 years, which would have been kind of crazy considering his history, considering his antics, and considering all the things that have surrounded him within the past year and a half. I understand, especially from a business standpoint, why you would have pause before giving him a long-term deal like that. With regard to the Mavericks and Kyrie, I think this could be a perfect deal for them, barring Kyrie stays away from the distractions and the antics, and overall, it'll be a deal that sees the Mavericks being happy and Kyrie being there for a good amount of time and possibly ending his career there. Obviously, only time will tell, and there's a lot of ifs in that considering Kyrie's history. Another signing that I thought was a perfect deal for both sides was the Chris Middleton deal, where he signed 3 years, $102 million with the Bucks, but the caveat to it is there's a player option at the end. So technically, after those first 2 years, if Chris Middleton wants out, he could feasibly just opt out of his contract and sign with another team if he sees that he doesn't want to play with the Bucks in the future. Now, for the Bucks, I think this is a very movable deal if you feel like you can't trust Chris Middleton. I feel like with both sides, there's a feeling that you might not be able to trust the other side. Chris Middleton may feel like his job is being threatened after a string of injuries that have held him out and hasn't enabled him to play to his fullest potential. Whereas for the Bucks, obviously Chris Middleton hasn't been there. You know how the mantra goes, your best ability is your availability, and being that Chris Middleton hasn't been there, that has hindered this team. They were the #1 seed in the playoffs, and they were a first round out. Now, granted, Giannis got hurt as well, but Chris Middleton not being at 100%, it affects them. It affects this team, because we did see that Chris Middleton, he can play very well and carry this team to some dubs when Giannis is out. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Chris Middleton's low-key getting the bag with $34 million per year, and I think he's also given the opportunity to prove himself with a shorter deal. So hopefully Chris Middleton can get back to his championship form, and it'll show Milwaukee as one of the teams at the top of the East once again. Speaking of bags, Bruce Brown absolutely got him one. Now, we expected this to happen, but I don't think we expected him to go to the Indiana Pacers. I don't recall any Indiana Pacer rumblings. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but personally, I don't recall hearing any rumors regarding him going to Indiana. I've heard New York, I've heard LA, I've heard many different places. Indiana wasn't one of them. Now, personally, I like Indiana, so don't get me wrong when I say this, but I don't think it does too much for them. They did lose O'Shea Brissett to the Celtics, so this does give Bruce Brown clear minutes and where he's gonna be with this team and the lineup, while being on a team looking to compete. This was a playoff team before Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. We can't forget that, and I'm willing to bet that they'll be a top 6 seed in the East going into next year, but we just have to make sure that their health stays intact. And though I really like Indiana, I don't think they're gonna be quite a contender just yet. They're a few pieces away. I think they need to move off of some of their older vets that they have now and get some younger guys in there, but until then, I think they're going to be a pretty formidable team in the East, and they're a strong team going forward. One of the next signings that I don't really think was too surprising but was a good deal for both sides was Draymond Green staying with Golden State for 4 years, $100 million. Now, to me, this was the best possible outcome for both sides. The relationship between Draymond Green and the Warriors is mutually beneficial. We know that. Draymond Green is the heart and soul of the Warriors, while the Warriors, this is his home. This is the team he's always been with. And I don't think it would be right to see Draymond in a jersey other than an all-star jersey if it's not a Warriors jersey. That's just me personally. Without Draymond, I don't think they're the dynasty that we know them to be now. He's the heart, he's the blood, he's the soul. And though the situation with Jordan Poole and the young guy happened early in the year last year, after moving off of Jordan Poole, I think it was clear what the Warriors were doing, what direction they were going to go to. And like I said, being that heart and soul of the team, he's going to get paid as such as a 4-time champion, and I respect it. I understand him getting the money that he got, and I understand the contract that he got. Now, one contract that I wasn't too sure on, and I know some of you might be, but Kyle Kuzma got a 4-year, $102 million deal with Washington. Now, personally, I thought Washington was going to hit the reset button, and I don't know if you guys saw my short, but I wanted Kyle Kuzma to go to the Kings. I thought it was a great fit. I thought it was a team that needed to upgrade and not stay stagnant, but once they signed Harrison Barnes, I kind of knew what time it was. Kyle Kuzma wasn't going there, but I thought Kyle Kuzma was probably going to lead the Wizards, which didn't happen. Now, I will say this. They technically have a duo. If you want to say a big three with Denny Adavija, fine, you can say that, but I'm going to just say Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. This team just seems like a team that they're going to try to keep developing younger guys, and then by the time Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are a little bit older, probably 4 years down the line or so, they're looking to compete while they're in their prime and while they can take advantage of Kuzma and Poole being at their best. But with regards to the Kings and that Harrison Barnes deal, like I said before, I didn't like it because I think the Kings needed to upgrade, especially in the West, especially going against a team like the Kings, and they didn't even get past the Warriors, who didn't get past the Lakers. So that's a couple steps down that you had to figure out. Granted, they played great basketball. They had one of the best road records in the NBA, and they were a really good team, but I think they needed an upgrade, and I thought Kyle Kuzma would have been that perfect upgrade. Maybe they see something that I don't see with Harrison Barnes. And last but not least, the bag of the century, which I think might just be it might be a finesse. I ain't gonna lie to you, but Fred VanVleet got paid. He got paid. He got a 3-year, $130 million deal with the Rockets, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand what the Rockets are doing. They just drafted Amen. Of course, they have Jalen Green, so it's like, what are you doing with Fred VanVleet? What are you going to have him as? What are you going to have him doing? Because I know Amen isn't going to start immediately. Ime Udoka, he talked about how he thinks this team should be competing early. So I wouldn't expect someone like Amen to start immediately. I do expect him to develop a little bit more throughout the season because he is a player that can do that and become very good going into his second year. But with Father Fred, 3 years might be perfect. It might be the sweet spot to where at that 3-year mark, he's pretty much done. He's more or less here to mentor. And that's probably what it is. He's probably here to mentor. After those 3 years are up, you're going to have Amen, you're going to have Jalen Green, and you're ready for them to turn into some guys to really, you know, push towards the playoff run and things like that. I don't think the James Harden acquisition was really realistic. Now, it can still happen. You never know. But I think that this was really just a way of getting a mentor for these young guys. And I think it's a smart move in that sense, especially because, like I said, it's only 3 years. By the time that 3 years up, you're ready for those two guys to really take that next step, take that next level. That's all I got for you guys in my day one of free agency. I think it was a very interesting day one, despite the players not being very strong. Like I said, more rotational pieces, more bench, more depth kind of pieces around. And it's fine. It's cool by me because I like to see role players getting more, you know, more money, first of all, but also they're getting a chance to show what they can do on contending teams. And I think we're about to start seeing that next level of role player like Herb Jones, Shake Milton, Gabe Vincent, guys like that. They're going to start getting contracts and deals with teams that are starting to contend and really, you know, make a push towards the playoffs. Now, I know Shake Milton got signed to the Timberwolves, so he's not really on a contending team, but you get my overall point with the rest of the people. That's all I got for you guys in this one. It is your boy TB with the greatest hoop stories and debates on the tube. And as always, subscribe if you're new. 90% of you watching are not subscribed, which is crazy to me. It's going to make me cry, but if you don't want to see a grown man cry, make sure you subscribe below. Comment who you think was the best free agent acquisition up until this point. And it's your boy TB with the greatest hoop stories and debates on the tube. And I am out. Peace.